Okay, Fran, welcome to the Mojo Injection.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
It's very nice. Thank you for giving up your precious time to have a wee chat and help boost up the mojo of our listeners.
No, it's a delight. It's a delight. Anything I can do to help. I love this field, and I've done one or two of these sort of things now, so I'm enjoying it.
Oh, well, great. No, I'm really excited to sort of share, dive deeper into your story and inspire people and myself. It's partly selfish reasons why I do this because I get a lot out of it, but then it's great to be able to share it. So it's really nice to have you here.
Good.
So
Thanks.
So I gave a brief intro about your life, and you were saying that, would you say you're most known for your time, was it Still Game, you said, or River City, or Outlander, or...
It's a funny one because each time someone comes on, you get loads of social media friend requests from different people and that. So, Still Game, I was one of the lucky ones. I was in years ago
Uh-huh.
when they were, the early Still Games. And then the guys were brilliant. They had me back for the new ones as well. So my character's a bit of an animal.
I
He's
need to
funny.
dive in and watch. Like, I'm really intrigued.
You should. It's really good. It's really good. It's not so good when people shout some of your punchlines at you as they're driving past. It's a bit bizarre. The one of my lines in it is quite a funny line where I shout "Nay points, prick." I've had that shouted at me, I don't know, 5,000 times. Uh, it's just weird, but it's it's weird, but it's funny.
Out of like all the acting, because like Outlander, what a cool, like, it's got such a following, isn't it? Like River
It's
City. What would be your most? It's hard to sort of pick a favorite when people ask you stuff like this, but you have thought.
I don't know. It was great to be. They're all different, and they're all different for different reasons. Like for instance, Guardians of the Galaxy was brilliant. It's such a massive, massive movie, a big Marvel movie, and it's you just have to. What I have learned, you have to take the rough with the smooth because you watch the movie for the first time, and when you see all these different scenes that you were in that they've cut, you
Right.
take it really personally. But
Mm.
then you think, I look at that and I think, well, wait there. I was in that scene with Dave Bautista, Zoe Saldana, and Chris Pratt, and they cut. So they cut all these different scenes. They could have made the film 20 hours long. That's the problem, and they take the very, very best. So sometimes you just got to suffer with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose one of the great things I really always wanted to work with Ken Loach, and it was a pleasure working for him. It's a Free World was the name of the film, and it was just great. He's such a I don't know, he's just such an icon. I share his politics as well, so that was fantastic as well. The guys on River City, all of them, they're absolutely fantastic. But I did have a wee bit of a problem with that way because I played an incestual rapist.
Yeah, it must have been quite intense.
Today's in today's social media, it's quite hard because some people they forget to make a difference between you as a person and your character.
Really?
And aye, and when you get it is really weird when some people come at you with comments online. Like I've seen certain people on different forums, and eventually I just stopped looking because they're saying like, if I see that bastard, I'll stab him in the face and all this sort of thing. It's like, it's just bizarre. So people really take that to heart sometimes. Real staunch fans of things like River City. So you've just got to, I suppose, you just separate yourself from it.
Yeah. Was
But
it was it challenging to sort of do a scene like that?
well, it's really strange because the way it was brought in is that it had already happened. So it was brought in that I'm meeting my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So Gail Telfer Stevens, who plays Caitlin, is my daughter in it. And when we first meet, she has no idea. So it's really interesting. It's a challenge because you must love your character no matter what he is. Otherwise, how could you portray the character effectively? So if you're a serial killer,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to love the fact that you murder people because that's what you're into.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So to do the emotional journey was quite hard, because I get in and I need this whole family because it happened a while ago, and I'm just desperate to sort of pretend it never happened and be with them all, and then you get found out in the biggest way possible, and a huge wedding day expose sort of thing, and it's, you know, it was really, you know, they're all brilliant, and it was an absolute pleasure to play him. Yeah, who knows, I might have him back. He's no dead.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Goodness. So you were saying that the kind of whole acting thing started in your 30s, is that right?
Yeah, aye. It was actually right around my 30th birthday, because we actually, on my 30th birthday party, me and loads of the members of the cast of a play called Wave Me Goodbye from the Edinburgh Theatre Workshop all went out to my birthday party for my 30th. So there was loads of us. It was really good. But that's where it started, at the Edinburgh Theatre Workshop, which is sadly no longer with us.
Yeah.
That was a great experience. It really was. I got to sing a hit song, and it was the Chattanooga Choo Choo, and it was a wartime play, and it was, what I loved was the casting, because they cast me, I'm fairly big, and they cast me as the cowardly, conscientious objector. So it was really interesting playing that. I've got to say, it was a memory I'll never forget. It was really good, and I think that's what acting is. It's just a journey, brilliant memories. It really is.
Did you realize at that point, was there like a light bulb moment, you know, right, this is really what I want to do? Or
Do you know what? There maybe was, actually, because I think I mentioned this in my book. When there was a part where, like, I'm the cowardly Conchi, right? And everybody despises me for being a coward because I won't go and fight. But nobody's asked me why. They just think I'm a coward. But what they don't realise is it's because my three other brothers were killed in the war, and they were killed at the very start of the war. And here's me in this community, probably getting to know everyone, but I've decided I'm no going. And I had this thing about, I wanted to do. I get this moment where I'm really put down by somebody I love, and we've just had on the way home from the Christmas party, we've just had a big snogging session, and she pulls away and she's like, oh, I can't. We've had a drink and that, and she's like, I can't believe I fell for that. You're a coward, and I finally have this burst. Well, I'll tell you why I didn't go. And I played a Glaswegian character, and the line is, I had brers, right? I had brothers, I had brers. And I'd made a choice, and I went against the director, which I hope there's no directors listening, because you've got to do what the director tells you. But I really wanted to do it where I was breaking, I was going to cry, because I'm sick of it. It's hurt me so much. So I felt my voice should go up. So I was like, I had prayers. And I was like that. Well, when I got the reaction, I could see in the audience, it only takes a couple of hundred seats, but I could see the amount of hands that went like this. People totally engaged with it. It put me off. I thought something had happened. So that, to me, it felt brilliant. And then when I seen different newspapers, I'm a landscaper. I'd never even seen a stage before this. So to have newspapers write something about this, it's only amateur dramatics, but to see them write about it and mention my name a few times in a really positive way, I was like, huh, that's really cool. So yeah, it was good. It was really good, and it's just, since then, it's played a part in my life ever since. Wow. It's really good.
Such a buzz to do something like it's art. It's kind of like, you know, when you've got that passion and you're able to get a reaction like that, it's just amazing.
Aye, it is, and it's to get that sort of reaction. You've also got to be blessed to get the role, you know, because you've got to be able to. You can only get that reaction if you've got the kind of lines and that kind of role. So that was really great. But it was a lovely launch pad, and that sort of led to me getting a part in the Edinburgh Festival. for a John Godber play, where I played Alec Rowley, the butcher from Yorkshire, and it was really good. That character as well was great, and that's where I got picked up by an agent who, funnily enough, she thought I was from Yorkshire, so that was really cool.
Wow. And how did things change from, being picked up by an agent? Did that really just step things up a gear for you?
Well, you've got to then make sure you do things right, and you've got to get yourself a show reel. And it's funny, it's the stuff I teach in my classes now for actors, but you've got to get yourself a show reel. You've got to get photographs. You've got to, you are the product, so you've got to sell yourself. So I remember I just made up this completely random scene in my garage and looked right down the camera, which back then broke all the rules. I'm supposed to look over here, sort of thing, as if I'm adjacent to talking to somebody that the camera's looking at. I don't believe in that, and it's changed it's changed considerably since then. Even though a lot of the universities will still teach you to look to the side. But so I just done this scene with a big cigar as if I was some hard man gangster guy, and I'm threatening the guy straight down the camera, telling him where I'm going to bury him, and just even the cigar and the whole feel it, and I edited it quite well with a slight undertone of music and that, and that got me my first part, which was really good. I think if you enjoy it, there's a golden rule. If you enjoy it, you'll be good at it. I think that goes with everything in life.
Yeah, it's amazing, because to go from like landscaping, which I guess is a form of art as well, different style, to go into acting.
I mean, and the thing is, what's great for me, I'm very blessed because I've still got my landscaping company to this day.
Wow.
So it's always there. It's if I get too busy or if I go off somewhere acting, I can just close down and I'll come back to it again. I suppose it's like a soft cushion. It's always there for me. But I suppose I only take on jobs that are very creative, to be fair. I enjoy really creative work, and I keep it nice and simple. I've got a very simple life now.
Simple life. Well, I mean, you're doing so many great things though. So from the coaching, is it primarily actors that you work with to help, or do you have a range?
It was, but it really was. But now there's been more and more people coming to me who are nothing to do with acting. And it's great seeing the changes that happen in their life, because what blocks you in performance blocks you in life. So it's the exact same thing to help a performer, albeit they don't have to do scene work and things like that, but it's the exact same thing. So doing these really deeply emotional exercises that allow negative energy to leave your body in the form of tears, to make way for positivity, come in like a sponge, it's the same whether you're a guitarist, a poet, an artist, or a baker, a policeman, or a teacher. So, so it's something I love doing as well. Just seeing the change in people. I think Amanda will probably have seen that in me. And when Amanda wrote, I asked Amanda if she would write the foreword in my book, and she was great. And she just poured everything out in this foreword, and it's a great introduction because it kind of sums up what I do entirely. And then I suppose the foreword by her sums up what I do, and the rest of the book sums up how I do it. So she's brilliant. She really is. She I keep on saying it's like when you've got things to say, to let off your chest. It's only by sharing that you can start to find a platform from which to heal. And it was a really nice thing when she said she'd been doing, I don't know, a year or two with different parts of the NHS to help her get through what she'd been through. And she says after one night in my class, had done more than that entire time with all their different employees or psychologists or whatever. So that was a great sort of testament to how efficient or how effectively it all works. You know,
That's
it's
amazing.
something that starts immediately.
Hmm. Hmm. It was interesting what you said about, you know, when you can release this negative energy. And I think I've done a bit of acting and actually had a massive opportunity before lockdown, but I ended up in hospital and then lockdown. So
Oh,
maybe it'll come back. But acting, I think the more present I am, the better performance, because it's like you're really in the moment and you're there and you're all in, you know. Whereas
aye.
in terms of, you know, when we're not present, we're either, you know, stuck in the past, as you say, and you speak a lot about trauma. And I think there was a list, there was abandonment, betrayal, rejection, loss, pain. And
Yeah,
it's
there'd be bereavement. It would be one of them. There is all these things are like the sort of primary damages that cover every damage you could ever have,
yeah.
and these are the sort of things. If you've had any of these things, that uh, everyone, sorry, everyone has had. There's
Hmm.
no one that hasn't had any of these things. No one, and
Hmm.
anyone who has, i.e., all of us have, needs to heal.
Hmm.
Now the question is, who has put the time into healing? You know, the first thing that will happen if you trip over and break your arm, you're
Hmm.
straight to hospital to get it fixed.
Hmm.
But you know what society is like, is that the first thing anybody has an emotional problem,
Hmm.
what the term mental health issues, but it's mostly it's emotions. But
Hmm.
when people go through this, and sometimes they don't know how to articulate it or bring it out to discuss it, but the first thing everybody, so society sees it as a sign of weakness, and it's changing. But society, because society at whole sees it as a form of weakness, people hide it, and the more you hide it, the worse it gets, because
Hmm.
you have to go to effort to hide it. And if you don't want people to find out about you, you hide it. So you start changing the way you do things. So everybody will think I'm okay. Everybody will think I'm great if I just do this. And it's such a shame. So if we can just get through that barrier, I think we're getting there. The mental health issues sort of barrier where everyone's afraid to talk about it. We need to get to the point where it's just like going to get your arm in a cast. You can go and speak to somebody about your mental health. It's getting there.
It's amazing. Like I started campaigning 6 years ago about for mental health, just to break the stigma, and I've noticed a huge shift in that time. But still having my own scare last year, and I was sectioned, which, you know,
Mm.
for my mental health, it's always been really, obviously we all have mental health, so I've had stress, I've had anxiety, but all in all I've been quite a happy, stable person. People would come to me for advice because I'm very vulnerable and I say it how it is, WYSIWYG. So that's
Yeah,
really helped me with my mental health. But there's a lot of things that may have triggered, but I had a hypomanic episode. Some said it was full-blown mania. I've never been diagnosed with bipolar or anything like that, but I've always been a bit weird for being quite high energy. But this was an
yeah,
actual, it tipped, and I knew it tipped because it had gone from just being like high energy to like mind racing, insomnia, lack of self-awareness. And there's so many things that I think, like, what caused, because I've been doing an energy course and I thought maybe I released some trauma from childhood and it made me go up, or maybe it was just a buildup of not enough self-care. But then I thought, well, I was getting plenty of self-care, but I was working really hard and I'm a mom, so I was trying to do that really well. And I don't, you know, I was that sort of analyzer in me was trying to work out what happened. But someone had said to me, oh, you know, you're not the sort of person that would end up in a mental hospital. And I was like, why? I have a mind. That's like saying you're not the sort of person that would end up in hospital with a
aye,
broken toe in it.
aye. You're not the sort of person who would ever have a car that needs to go into a garage.
Yeah,
You know, it's just
exactly.
it's just stupid.
It's just an ignorance that's still there. So even though we've come on so much, actually being sectioned myself, although it was traumatic and awful for me and my family and friends, I'm partly thankful for it, for all it's taught me, but it has really shown me how much stigma there is still there and how much work we have to do, because,
Mm.
you know, mental hospital is, yeah, it's scary for people. It's
You might find that part of the reason with yourself that it might have reached that stage
Mhm.
could be an effect of the underlying negativity about discussing mental health. So it was maybe like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine. And just, you know, when certain alarm bells started to ring, you might have ignored them. That's very, very common, where we've all done it, where if certain things happen in our life and if we ignore the alarm bells. But it's really interesting that in that sort of entire field of mental health, it's so common that people, they're aware of them, but they try to ignore them or don't register properly, because it's quite a scary journey to go down, to put your hand up and say, actually, look, I've got a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or I've got a mental health issue, because people are like, you what? You know what I mean? It's just, it's so ridiculous. It really is. It's actually, say I'd take it a stage further than that, because I think you see people going to the gym all the time, and they're getting their body the way they want, and they're getting fit and they're getting healthy. But I see mental health being the very same. And one thing I will say is, people have such a mind blowing, especially in the master classes, where I've got people for 3 full days. People have such a life changing event, which is fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just one event. If you don't incorporate that in your life constantly, everything that we went over and everything that we done together, if you don't incorporate it into your life, it's natural that life's problems and everything are going to slip back in, and you're going to get into old habits. And it's just the same as not going to the gym. So I encourage people to say, look, even if it's online and you're only wanting to do something like a session every 2 or 3 months, it's worth it. You know, just like, I know it's corny, but you know, you're worth it. And I say that to everybody. It's definitely, you must invest in yourself. And I think that's a big thing.
I think as well, like before I got the hypomania, mania, whatever, I'd been doing so much work, like so much meditation, but giving an awful lot of my energy to help others, but like lots of meditation, but there was some things that were pushed under. Like I remember saying to my husband, like, we need to talk through some stuff, and there was like differences and clashes, and I was like, can we talk through, can you do this mindfulness course? And he didn't want to do it, and I was really upset, because like lots of people are like, oh, it's great if you get your partner to do it, and I'd heard of some that had, and he wouldn't go, and he was being really stubborn, and it really got to me. And then I was like, you know, we should maybe do something to clear through these issues, but he wouldn't. So I guess there was maybe a bit resentment there on my part too, and maybe someone had spoke to me about mirroring. So like, now you say you've been with your partner since you were 20, is that right?
20, well, we've been going out since, God, this is terrible, she'll shoot me. We've been married for almost 28 years.
Wow.
And we've been going out with each other for just short of 30 years. So
Wow, that's amazing.
we went to the same primary school and the
Wow.
same high school.
So when you've been with someone for so long, now at the time when I was getting unwell, we'd been together like 12 years or something like that. And I was thinking about mirroring, you know, so when you're with someone uh, all this time, you can maybe pick up their trauma they've not dealt with and stuff. So that was something someone else was saying to me, oh, maybe you've picked up some trauma and you're taking it on. And, you know, my head was really like, because I know so much about mental health, I was just like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happened. So it's quite a, you know, you have to go quite deep, but it's quite a journey, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is. What I would say is they're all everything is, you know, there's people that have got physical, inherent issues to do with brain trauma and things like this. And there's certain conditions as well that people have to manage. But everything's brought about through problems in our daily life and the way we either address or don't address certain issues and things in our lives. These can be dealt with so effectively, really so effectively. And it's a funny thing. I never would have thought, you know, 30 years ago, that the words authenticity and positivity, but specifically authenticity, I would never have thought that was going to be such an important word in my life. And when I see people, it's only when they become completely authentic. And, you know, in my classes, and they just say, you know what, I'm going to let it out.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell the truth. I'm
Mhm.
going to say, this happened, this is what I've been through. But I've certain techniques that I've learned that are brilliant at bringing it out of
Mhm.
someone. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
And there's people that don't want to say anything. And it's hard because, you know, I can't smack them across the head and say, tell us. You know, it's
Mhm.
certain things when when people share their journey,
Yeah.
it's bizarre. Yeah, I could swear I've seen people soak the floor with their tears and
Wow.
walk out literally looking like they're 2 inches taller. And they
Mm.
walk out,
Yeah.
they come into the class, some of them like this, you know, and they go out like this. Oh, I feel amazing, you know. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's I had exactly that. I was, you know, I was unaware of what I was turning into
Mhm.
when I first met my mentor who taught me, Bernard Hiller from Los Angeles. And I'm not afraid to say it. I had such a breakdown that in his class, I literally, I cried for 3 days.
Wow.
I spewed and I pissed myself.
Wow.
I mean, I just had complete convulsions, and I was so embarrassed. I just, it was just like, I just wanted the ground to swallow me up. Do you know what? It was the greatest thing in my life because I changed that day. I became a different person. My life track changed that day, and it went on a completely different course forever, irreversible. And and after going around different countries doing classes with the same person, Bernie, he's brilliant. He, I think it was 2014, 2015, he asked me to teach.
Mhm.
And I felt so silly because he says, I really think you should start teaching. He says, I'd like you to, he took me aside in private. He said, I'd like you to consider teaching. I was like, teaching what? He's like, teaching this, you asshole. But it was, it's brilliant. So, but again, you mentioned tears, and the first thing people are like, whoa, I do want to do that, you know. What if people think I'm this or that? You know, what will people say? It's nonsense. The minute you show your vulnerability, that's when everyone falls in love with you.
Yeah. Was it sort of transformational breathing or something that brought it out? Because I've heard people that go into a session like that and they completely lose it. They're crying, they're laughing, they're hysterical. So that can be quite an intense way for people to dig deeper, or is it different techniques?
No, it's just things like, I'm not going to do it during this, but if I was to ask you certain questions
Hmm.
and take a journey through part of your life, and you can tell what questions to ask to get to the nitty gritty of somebody's issues. And I mean, we all have. One thing I say in the class is at the very start, I say about, look, every single thing you do, the way you look at someone, the eye contact, the lack of eye contact, the way you do your hair, the way you don't do your hair, your clothing, your voice, your posture, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you listen, the way you don't listen. It's never ending. Every one of these things is recorded and observed by every single person you meet at all times. But you know what? It's also judged. Nobody can help it. It's inbuilt and it just keeps on recording and recording. So you right away, your body, you can't help it. You're, oh, don't like this person. They've maybe done a couple of things your inbuilt defense system doesn't like. So it's all about how what we give off at all times is a reaction to our experience
Hmm.
at all times. So if I ask a person a certain question and they answer this, or this, I know what question to ask next,
Hmm.
and next, and next, until eventually we get to the feelings where they've got a choice. They're standing on the edge of the cliff and they can either jump into the deep, beautiful blue ocean or they can run away and hide. And thankfully, you know, in all my time, I think I've only had maybe one person who's ran away and hid.
Wow.
And it's so it's great. People are, and the wonderful thing is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, when you see people at the end just so full of love, so full of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that you know you're doing something right when you see that. It's changing people's lives.
So the work turns down the analyzer, in a sense, that the judgmental, because you hear about people that have had spiritual awakening and whatever, where they just feel so much love. Now, a few months before I took on Well, when I was getting into a lot deeper meditation and stuff, I had like a few moments where I was just full of love, and it felt like a very spiritual experience. And it was like all judgment was gone, and anyone that would hurt me, I just had all this love pouring out of me. Is that the kind of thing you speak of, where it's like you've released all this stuff and then you've...
Well, yeah, but it's a lot of the things, like a lot of my exercises I do are one-to-one, so I'll have two people facing each other. And so a lot of the exercises are things like where you are looking in someone's eyes for over an hour.
Wow.
And you're not allowed to break eye contact. You have to hold their hands and look in their eyes, and as they're looking in, I take them on a journey. And if I see anyone looking away or whisper, I'm not mean, but I'll be on it right away, telling them, hey, if you don't want to do it, leave. Because I don't want them disturbing anyone else who's taking it seriously. And it's amazing. So when you start doing that, there's a wonderful phenomenon. If I've got a person here and a person here, right? So the whole class is in twos, and then I'll go around and I'll talk to. This is only on 4 or 5 different exercises I do, but I'll go and talk to one particular couple, and I'll start talking to them, mentioning things that I think I can see. And then what you get is one of them will spot something in the other one that they need to come out with. Something that quite often, I say, it's in our secrets, things that we haven't told anyone. That's where fear grows wild. It really takes over. And so people keep these things secret. But see, when it's a phenomenon, when one person looking in their eyes, this person starts feeling what this person should be feeling. This person starts crying their tears. And it's an amazing phenomenon. So what you get is people actually, quite often they'll come out and say, I feel so sorry because I think this has happened to this person. And you'd be amazed how often they nail it like that.
Wow,
and
just from looking at them.
Aye, but you're looking at them for a long time. That's called the eyes or the window of the soul.
Yeah.
And it's quite a deep. It's one of the early exercises in the whole series of them, but it's still quite deep. And it's really revealing when people immerse themselves.
Do you find with people it's more like it's one big thing, or could it be a few things that have happened? Because with trauma, what could be a huge deal to someone isn't to someone else. So, you could have been through a breakup or something like that, and it's really damaged someone, whereas the other person's like, oh no, it just wasn't meant to be, loved them, but got to let go, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's almost almost always one root cause. Something that triggers something. And it's quite interesting. There's a Gabor Mate book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And Gabor spoke to, all his life, he spoke to drug addicts. And without exception, he says, after all his 25 years of working with drug addicts on the streets in Canada, he has never came across anyone who can't, once he does therapy with them, who didn't relate it to where it started to go wrong at a specific time in their childhood. And that's quite amazing. That's people who are stuck on drugs, their lives are ruined. And this is people, hundreds and hundreds of people. And he says he hasn't came across anyone who hasn't had their addictions after therapy where they could relate it to a single day where things started to go wrong.
Wow.
Quite often, our subconscious knows this and we ignore it, and we try and get on. It's so sad. I'm not going to talk about individual cases. In my book, I mention a few cases, but a few people, but I've changed names, locations, dates, everything like that. I've even changed the sex quite often. But it's quite amazing to hear with someone who's dealt with it at the high end, of sort of where people have really, many of them have taken their own lives, but through their therapies they were able to find out what caused it. So I think most of the people I speak to, when we do things in the class, they can relate it to either one specific thing or one specific relationship. And it's really heartbreaking. But the methods to heal anyone, it's amazing. The actual method, you might take a different road and turn left and right until you're in the class, until eventually you all get to the same goal. And it's all about learning to love yourself first. It's learning to not accept people not treating you well.
Yeah.
It's learning to tell the truth. I don't feel good. I feel like this, or I feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's about acceptance of what's went wrong, acceptance of pain, what causes you pain, and it's about being able to talk about it freely, saying, I'm not going to hide this. I wouldn't hide it if I broke my arm, so I'm not going to hide this. And when people can do that, they stand tall, and that's where the journey to healing begins, I've found.
Yeah, and it's such amazing when you speak about being authentic, to be able to do that in every situation, be it in a work environment, in your relationship at home with your kids, or just being able to speak out like that and really follow that intuition in a deeper place, right?
Aye, and to be able to feel it. I mean, I think the biggest thing I always say is to feel your way through life. To
Yeah.
feel your way. I'll be honest, I've switched my brain off for a lot of stuff. I think the brain is a self-defense mechanism. It's like everything you want to do that your heart yearns for, your brain says, oh no, what if somebody thinks this?
Yeah.
I remember even when I was thinking about climbing Kilimanjaro a couple of years ago there, I'm like, oh man, this would be so cool. And the brain's like, what if you don't get to the top? What if you don't raise any money for the charity? What if you can't afford it? What if you hurt yourself? What if, what if you fail? That's what it's about. What if you fail? And but the heart's like, but fuck it, I want to go. Sorry, I'm allowed to swear on this.
It's uncut. It's all good. Be the truth.
but that's exactly what it is, just to be able to be your authentic self and say, I want to go. I want to do this. It's going to be great standing atop Africa watching the sunrise across a whole continent, that sort of thing. And knowing you're raising money to help people who are getting no help from anyone. It's a kind of great thing. So I love all of that. But that's authenticity, I think, is being able to say, I'm doing it because I want to do it. Why do you want to do it? Because it feels right. It feels right.
Yeah. It's powerful. Feeling your way through life. I think that will have to be the title of this podcast. I'm going to write it down. Feel your way through life. So how do you
I like that.
How do you feel your way? I mean, did you have a breakthrough of, oh, right, this is my thing? Do you think everyone has a thing, a kind of, what was it you called, a trigger, or can't remember the word you used for it, but the root.
I mean, I had that. That was the start of the change for me. That was where everything changed, was at these first classes. But we still have to be able to learn. And I wasn't learning. I mean, I had to change my life, but there's a lot of things I wasn't learning. And I remember, it's strange because we teach in our classes, if all your arrows in your life point to me, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. If you're not pointing out to help this person, help that project, help this other anybody, any sort of school or neighbor or friend in need, if all your things are pointing me, I don't think the universe is going to be that keen on helping you. It's just, I think it's just it's know the way it works. I really believe that. It's what they say in life supports what supports life. And it's true. When you do things where you're helping and you're trying to have a positive influence on everyone and everything around you, people appear from anywhere to help you. It's incredible.
It comes down to, as you were saying, like loving yourself first, though, so that that fear doesn't take over your life. Because when you love yourself more, then you've got more to give, and you've got this energy about you, right? And as you say, yeah, help just comes. I remember being invited in by like Borthwick Castle. I don't know if you know of it, but it's like a really kind of
I
luxury.
know Borthwick Castle. I've been to weddings there.
So when I launched my book in 2018, they invited me in one morning, and they could see all the work I'd been doing and plugging away with mental health, and they say, we want to sponsor your entire book launch. And
Wow.
the month before, I'd been stressing because I had people wanting to do the event, but they were giving me all these prices, and I was just like, ugh, like, just don't have the budget for this. And then like the most luxury castle in Scotland, like said, we're going to give you on a Saturday, the entire castle is yours for the day. It was just the most amazing event with like family.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. Press, bloggers, like, and just,
My mate who was my best man had his wedding there.
oh really? It's just such
It's a great place.
a magical place. But it was like, as you're saying, like, I was like, oh, so much. And then things just happen when you really, really care and you're doing things with the right intention. It just works out, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think it's why you know, this sounds a bit controversial, but I don't believe in democracy. I think it's a piece of nonsense. It lets the rich get to the top and they can shit on everybody else. But a meritocracy provides a situation where everyone who does good
Mm-hmm.
climbs into the positions of power.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the Star Trek civilization, that way of living, where there's no money, people do things for the good of society. But I think a meritocracy would be such a great thing, and I think society will eventually reach that at some point. But where people are genuinely moved into positions of power and prominence by the one-to-one good that they do with everything that they are. I mean, you have to think. I actually see billionaires as a disease. I don't know what the disease is called, but how can someone have billions of pounds and look at someone starving?
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot. I cannot believe that. Now, these people do acts of kindness, but they do acts of kindness that won't even make a dent in a tiniest percentage of their savings, even on the interest on a tiniest percentage of their savings. Most of them. I just think I'm a right believer in a meritocracy, but I do believe in it exactly that. If we all do good
Mm-hmm.
constantly, it's what was it? I think it was it Buddha that said that the greatest teacher is not he with the most students, but he who produces the most teachers.
Yeah.
So the person who can live the life in a way that everyone else wants to live like that, because they're helping everybody. People come out of the woodwork to help you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. But to do it, it's like a deeper place. I said in a piece of writing, so I'd written 50,000 words for my second book, and then I got sick, and I was like, oh, I can't fully go back to it yet. But I was saying, like, money can buy happiness for people, but joy is like an inside job, right? It can't buy you joy. So there's only so
Mm-hmm.
much money can comfort and freedom money can provide, but it can't
Aye.
it can't do the deeper stuff, and that is an inside job, right? It's stripping
Aye.
through the layers, and I guess you look people leaders like Trump and stuff, and it's kind of ego led. There's a lot of ego led leaders, but there's a lot of heart led leaders. So it's the
Mhm.
heart-led leaders that create more leaders and, inspire and do amazing things. And then it's the ego-led leaders. But then you could argue, well, the people that are ego-led have to do more work, right? Because they've not stripped away. So perhaps what the root of the problem is, they're trying so hard to be something, or they don't know who they really are. They think they do, but they don't, or they're not dealing with things. Would you agree?
Aye, but I think a lot of people choose to ignore it. A lot of people, you mentioned leaders there. You know, I don't believe there's virtually not a single politician out there or a single leader that I would look at and say, wow, there's a great person. I just, because a career politician is, I think it's like Billy Connolly says, just the want to become a politician should bar you from ever being one.
Mhm.
Uh, I see them all. They're all in it for themselves. There's I forget the name of the book I read recently. All about the offshore accounts that the files that were all exposed
Mhm.
several years ago, and it's hard to believe. I'm not going to mention any names, but it's hard to believe the names that were in this that are supposed to be doing good. People that are like peace envoys for the UN and stuff like this. They've got hundreds of millions of illegal money in offshore accounts. And you're
Mm.
just like, it's heartbreaking. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking. But I think I've learned that if we all do our own bit and we stick in our own world and help who we can, then you can circumvent past these idiots and just keep helping, keep being proud of the change that you're doing. And I think you just have to accept that, because you're not going to change the people in power and the people who don't care and the multi-billionaires. One day someone in that sort of position might do something amazing and change the world, and help everyone. But there's too many people that are just self. But remember, it's not their fault, because they are only reacting to their history of life. They're to everything that's ever happened to them and everything they've ever undergone. They're only reacting to that. So a lot of people say blame the parents, because the parents are only a product of their upbringing. So
Well, it's
it's a hard one.
generations of learned behavior, and as you say, challenging it and speaking up and saying this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, and they say respect your elders, but older isn't always wiser.
No, that is true. That is so true. In fact, older, like, you have to think, certainly for me now, I turned 50 in just over a month, and I look at the generation above me, and they all had to endure the war, the Second World War, and the aftermath of the war.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
and what effect would that have on you? How much would that harden you? You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
I and I think, it is a really interesting thing to think everyone's a product of their own history, of
Yeah.
their own history of experience. So I think it's trying to give yourself that chance to say, you know what, because a lot of things, I'm sure you mentioned it a minute ago, like generational, but you can stop the damage, because it does actually follow in patterns.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
follows in patterns from generation to generation to generation.
Mhm.
And you can actually say, you know what, it stops right now.
Mhm.
Mark Wolin wrote it, I think, in his book, It Didn't Start With You. And
Mhm.
it's pretty cool, where it's like he's explaining uh, not how we are what we are,
Mhm.
but why we are what we are.
Mhm.
And by looking back the way, you can find out the big why, but you can stop it, you can change it.
Mhm.
I think that's what I love. The I get faced with that a lot in my classes, actually. Generational things,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
where parents and caregivers are treating the ones they're supposed to love
Mhm.
in a terrible way,
Mhm.
and it's because of things that have happened in the parent's life.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
such a shame. It's such a shame, but it's also great when you see people that have just realised this it's like a bell, and they've went, oh my God, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I've not told them, they've came out with it themselves,
Yeah.
just with their authentic discussion. And
Yeah.
it's then they have a platform to try to start working it out and healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you like the healing process? I mean, what do you believe makes someone take that step to heal, as opposed to just saying suppressing, carrying the baggage?
It's the pain. People don't want to be living with this pain.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get the chance, some people are not even aware that they've
Mm-hmm.
got this pain until they realize that it's been affecting their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And when you give them an opportunity, this sounds really weird, but when you give them an opportunity in a controlled environment
Mm-hmm.
where there is no judgment, where everyone can come out with whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no judgment, and everyone is, I mean, we're very much a hugging class, all of
Mm-hmm.
my classes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing stopped just now because of COVID, but we're very much a hugging class.
Mm-hmm.
And people understand, you know, we even have an exercise on hugging,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite an emotional exercise. And it's about the contract that is in hugging. People don't realize, they just think, oh, you know, but there's like 1,000 things in a hug
Mm-hmm.
that the brain you can't help it. The brain calculates, and
Mm-hmm.
it can tell, was that a wholesome person who just hugged me? Or was it somebody who's really shallow? You can't help it. Your brain makes a calculation for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so we always try to get to the point where everyone, when by the end of the class, is immersing themselves into the other person to say, I love you
Mm-hmm.
unconditionally, you know, and it's, you get to know people at that level. It's brilliant.
One of my lines in 2019 was "Don't be a stingy hugger," and then COVID hit, and I went from all these really long, and we would laugh and hold them for over 20 seconds. There's a debate; it's either 20 seconds, some say 25 to get the oxytocin hit of hugging, um, but a lot of the hugs, you know, when you get like a really 1 second kind of, and I'm like hugging. So I'm
You can
really
get it from a one. You can get it from a 1 second hug. Trust me. You can get
really.
it from from a 1 second hug, because it's about how immersive. You know, there's lots of things. You know, did your hug just involve the cheek? Did your hug involve the face? Did your hug involve the necks touching each other? Did your chin touch the back of the person's shoulder? Did your hands go right round the person? Or did you disconnect? Did you tap the person's back? Because that's an interesting one.
Oh, is that a
Do you
bad
put your
thing?
If you're tapping somebody's back, that's actually, in some instances, that's accepted as a disconnect. You know,
Oh,
you're disconnecting the hug. Whereas someone who hugs like this and who's fully immersive might even rub your back. You know, it's like, and does the hug go further down the body? You know, because it's all intimacy. You know, and some people think intimacy is a dirty word. It's nothing to do with sexuality or sexualness or anything like that. It's to do with immersing yourself into someone else
mhm.
to say I love you. And I get people saying sometimes, how can I say I love you? I've just met them. You know, I'll tell you what, you'd soon be able to say it if you were the last person on earth with that person. It's
Yeah.
it's my starting point is always I love you, always.
Oh, that's so nice. So nice. And talk to
People
us.
are afraid to say that publicly. A lot of people, they're just afraid. They're like, yeah, what if?
Yeah, yeah, there's a fear there. Again, it's vulnerability, isn't it? It's, you know, it can be a hard word for many to say. But
Aye, especially the people who find it hard are those who have never had it said to them. If
mm-hmm,
someone brought up in a wholesome environment with a lot of intimacy has no problem with
mm-hmm,
that sort of thing.
mm-hmm,
I do quite a bit on that in my book as well. Although my book, I think mine's is over 150,000 words, so it's quite a bit of reading. But
oh,
it's really there's a whole section about this immersive bit of the hug, but also of the type of people who just can't do it, you know, people who just can't, and it's a shame. I made up my mind. I didn't grow up in a family that was lovey-dovey sort of thing. You know, I call it lovey-dovey, but a family that was intimate. You know, my experience of it is that we had no intimacy. We talked about love a lot, but there was very little in truth. So when I found this in Bernie Hiller's classes, it was like, wow, you know, it was like finding a world within a world where, you know, this expression of intimacy and people openly wanted to know you, wanted to tell you I love you, if I'm here for you, that sort of thing. It's fantastic. It really is.
It's amazing. And you've been, you know, in a long relationship. So would you have tips for people? Because these days, you know, staying together with someone that long is not as was it 50% chance or
I think you've got to uh, be like all in. If it's one thing, you know, to have a foundation to have a good life, a great life. I think the first thing you've got to have is to know love in your life every single day. So you've got to find the right person. And to me, when you want to commit to that person and the person commit to you, then, you know, to me, you've got to be flexible to that person's needs. You know, you've got to expect them to be flexible to your needs. So I think reasonable flexibility is always a great thing, but always intimacy as well. You know, we're constantly saying I love you, and hugging and that sort of thing. It's I think that's a big thing. You know, there's a lot of couples, when you talk about stuff like this in a class, you can talk about what people don't do, and you can talk about loving people that do immerse themselves into their partner. And when you talk about things like this, you'll always find one or two start crying. And it's they're on a journey where they're realizing that something's wrong. They've maybe not got that, and it's I'm not saying everybody should stay together all the time. That would be crazy if people are incompatible. People make mistakes, but I think at what was it? It'll be nearly 30 years since I stand out, so I think we've got one thing right.
Wow.
It's and it's just that sort of journey, but being flexible. That's what I would say. I'll tell you, she's flexible with me. You know, the amount of times we've been going to go, the amount of times on holiday where I've had to change a holiday because my agent's phoned. And you know, I remember Case Histories it was, which was what's his name? I forget his name. He's a really good actor, the guy that played Lucius Malfoy's dad in Harry Potter. And but I had to come back. I was literally, we parked the car at Newcastle and we were walking to the plane, and my phone goes, it's my agent. She says, listen, you've got that part in Case Histories. And I was like, oh yes. She says, now where are you? Because they need you back and they need you here in 4 days for a rehearsal. I was like, you are kidding. I couldn't believe it. It's just so this happens a lot. In fact, it's happened on another holiday as well, where I had to come back for a fight scene rehearsal. And it's just, you have to do it. So I remember that fight scene all the way to Portugal. And I had to come all the way back for a full day fight scene rehearsal, and then all the way back out to Portugal again. It's not very earth friendly. But
but you got to do what you got to do.
Well, my wife, she's flexible. She was great. You know, I felt terrible leaving her with my 3 sons over there, and but then another couple of days without me. So actually, it's 3 days, because the day I left, the day that I had my rehearsal, and then I flew back the next day and got there in time for evening. So it's like 3 days. But if you want these roles, you've got to do it. So you've got to be all in.
You've got to go for it. And I'm really looking forward to reading your book. It sounds so interesting, and I'm sure like 150,000 words crammed with
I
experience
it's a
and
book. Well, there's an idea, if you can see that. There's how thick it is.
wow.
So it's I'm really proud of it, and I feel it's got a journey. It tells my journey, but it also tells a healing journey.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think for people that have been through things, there's lots. I think if somebody was to have a highlighter and put through things that really could help them,
Hmm.
you might find there's you know, you know 750 or 1,000 really cracking tips for life that
Yeah.
that could really help. And it's just I sort of took diaries of everything since I started that sort of these sort of classes, and then it's looking back in my life and understanding who I was, why I was, what all that sort of thing. So, it's I hope you get a chance to read it. I wanted to offer you a signed copy for anyone that's on your site that fancies a signed copy.
Oh,
So you can, if you want, I'll give you a wee question you can
yeah.
give them, and off camera I'll tell you what the answer is. But
Oh, that'd be great.
uh, it's if well, here you go. I cycled across Australia,
Mhm.
Western Australia, and at what location did I finish my cycle? And it's it was in papers, it was in I think it was even on telly, but it was in loads of different things online. So if anybody's interested and they want a copy of the book, a signed copy for free, if they answer that, where in Australia did I finish my cycle? And you can give me their address, but I'll give you the answer
Oh,
afterwards.
thank you so much. Well, that's so kind, and it's been so interesting to chat to you and hear more about what you do. So keep inspiring, keep up the great work.
Brilliant.
Course sounds amazing, and we'll look out for any more TV appearances or
Hi, great, and it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to because I went on and I looked back some of your stuff online as well. So well done, you. Really inspiring, and I think it's brilliant. You get the opportunity to to use your experience to help people and to change people's lives. So well done. If I was with you right now, I'd give you a huge big hug.
oh well, virtual hugs, virtual hugs. And do you have a song that an inspiring song people can add to their playlist this week, or just have a listen and get a mojo injection?
uh, Great song I love. The Winter Song by is it Lindisfarne?
Uh-huh.
The Winter Song. I don't know if you know that one.
I'm not good with names. The winter song, I'll probably like play it and then I'll be like, oh yeah.
Well, if you play it, listen to the words,
Uh-huh.
and you'll find it'll give you it's quite a bit where it talks about it mentions our greed. I
Mhm.
never really realised it, and the song grew on me more and more and more.
Mhm.
So it's you can actually listen to it, and it's like a mini meditation.
Really?
You mentioned meditations earlier. Well, actually, I'll have to send you something that you can listen to. It's a
Yeah.
meditation I've done, and I think you'd really like it. It's takes you back to your childhood, and it's about finding your purpose. So I'll drop you a link, and you
Oh,
can feel free to share it.
yeah, well,
Uh,
I'll put in a blog that I'll do following this when it goes live. So that would be really good.
cool, cool. Well, we'll get to meet at some point when all this COVID stuff's finished,
Yeah,
and
that's
uh,
fine.
and maybe you can, if you wanted to come to me and Amanda are going to be doing a very big healing class together.
Wow.
We're doing it in a hotel in the Scottish Borders, so it's
Wow.
going to be a 3 day. It's actually technically 4 days because you arrive a day early, but it's where we all stay in the same hotel. We eat together, we chat through breakfast, we heal together. It's going to be amazing. So, but we can't do that until we were just about to put everything in place, and then COVID sort of
Mm, what a
put the
pest.
brakes on.
Yeah, it'll all, once we get through this, we'll appreciate these times all the more, won't we?
Aye, and we'll be able to look back and, well, I was going to say look back and laugh. There's too many people lost lives to look back and laugh, I suppose. But we will look back and think, wow, we went through that. That's bizarre.
Hmm.
Although I'll be forever grateful because I actually, to take advantage of the weather, I sat in the garden almost the whole time with a laptop, and I got my book just went from this to this to this. It got bigger and bigger because I was able to put that time into it. Lockdown, 3 months, nothing. So
That's amazing.
uh, I could do with that weather now.
Oh, well, it'll be back. I tried to take the kids out from their homeschooling for a break this morning. I took one step into my front driveway and it was like an ice rink. I was like, right, okay, I'm going back. I'm not breaking a bone. I've heard too many people breaking things. So I went,
Oh, my son broke his collarbone sledging just there at
oh,
Christmas,
oh no.
just after Christmas. So he broke this one 3 years ago, played football, and then he got so cocky on the sledge. He was racing down the hill, and there was loads of people there, and he fell, and he broke this one. So one of the other parents brought. It was just at the other side of the village there. The whole hill was just sledges, everybody, but they were really good. They brought him home, and we got him into the hospital. He's he's sitting feeling sorry for himself since then. With all the snow, we've had snow relentlessly
Oh, shame.
since, and he's just had to stare out the window.
Oh, shame. Oh, bless. I mean, it's great fun, but you take the risk, don't you?
Aye, aye. Well, at least he's not afraid. I was worried there might have been something. Has he got a weakness in his bones and that? And the doctor says, yes, he has got a weakness. He's very clumsy and a bit over daring. So be it.
Oh, bless him. We'll send him some love and good vibes.
Will do. Will do.